Thank you for joining us tonight. We're going to be talking about getting ready for post-secondary school with T1D. I'm assuming everyone here is in grade 11 or grade 12 and looking forward to going to college or university in September or next September. So I just wanted to start with a land acknowledgement. I'm joining from Toronto, so this is the land acknowledgement for my territory. Toronto is in the Dish with One Spoon territory. The Dish with One Spoon is a treaty between the Anishinaabe, Mississaugas, and Haudenosaunee that bound them to share the territory and protect the land. Subsequent Indigenous nations and peoples, Europeans, and all newcomers have been invited into this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. And if you're not in Toronto, or if you want to learn more about the Dish with One Spoon territory, I invite you to go to the website native-land.ca and you can learn more about the history of the land that you're living on. So I'll introduce myself again. I'm Heather Miller. I'm the Executive Director with Diabetes Hope Foundation, and I'm very excited to be joined tonight by Maya and Heather, who are both mentors with the Diabetes Hope Connects Peer Mentorship Program. So I will give you both a chance to introduce yourselves and maybe share where you're studying and where you came from before you started studying there.
My name is Maya. I'm from Vancouver, BC, and I started going to McGill University this year. I'm studying in arts right now, and I've been diabetic since I was 14 years old, and I received the Diabetes Hope Scholarship last year.
Hi everyone, I'm Heather. I was diagnosed with diabetes when I was 12. I'm currently in my fourth year at Trent University studying Indigenous Studies in their teacher education stream, and I'll be attending Trent as well in the fall for the Bachelor of Education. I'm a program facilitator with the Diabetes Hope Foundation, and I received my scholarship in 2021.
Awesome. Thank you both. So just a bit about Diabetes Hope Foundation for anyone who's not familiar with it. We launched in 1999 with our scholarship program, and we've given out 943 scholarships since that time. Through the program, Barbara Pasternak, who's our founder, realized that there was also a need for some social supports for youth as they were transitioning to post-secondary school, and that's when we launched our peer mentorship program, which both Maya and Heather are a part of, where we match you up with a upper year student who has been through the transition to post-secondary school and is there to answer any questions that you might have, listen to any events that you might have about diabetes and how it's impacting your school or vice versa. And it's just an extra support in your corner, an extra cheerleader to help you through that. You can go to our website, diabeteshopefoundation.com, to learn all about that and the other programs and resources that we have. Everything we'll be talking about tonight is based on two resources that I highly recommend you check out if you haven't already. The first is our transition guide, which is an online resource that has information about every single school across Canada. So if you've decided where you want to go, this is a great place to go to figure out where the nearest endo is, what mental health supports are available, who to contact for accommodations. If you're deciding between a couple schools because you have so many that are knocking on your door, it just helps you compare between them, sort of what their healthcare plans are to help you make that decision. Once you've decided and once you've figured out sort of where everything is on campus, our student transition planner, which Heather actually is one of our co-authors on, walks you through everything you need to know about navigating your first year of post-secondary school. A lot of the stuff we'll be covering tonight, but there's a lot more detail in there. So don't feel like you have to take notes. It's available online for free. You can download it or just flip the pages online, and they're all at our website there. So today we're going to be talking about academic accommodations, student health insurance, navigating food on campus, talking about T1D with others, campus supports that are available to you. And I'll talk a little bit with the Diabetes Hope Scholarship Program, but the deadline has passed, so I'm going to talk more about other resources that are available for students with type 1 diabetes. Before we jump in, I'm going to put Maya and Heather on the spot a little bit and just ask if you have one piece of advice for students about what to sort of watch for when you're starting post-secondary with T1D, what that might be.
For me, I would say getting ahead of your accommodations and making sure you have those all laid out and the school is aware of the fact that you have diabetes, because that can be super helpful even if you aren't usually the type of person who might turn in assignments later. It can be super helpful if you have any illnesses or things that come up in the year, and it's just good for the school to know.
I would say my main thing is definitely if you live on campus or you are moving away for the first time, making sure that you're on top of your insurance, and then also making sure you have low snacks available because those run out a lot faster than you think, especially when you don't have like a pantry or something where you can just grab food really quickly.
Stock up on juice boxes and find things that are easy to carry home from the store. So we're going to start with academic accommodations. So there's a number of accommodations that are available to support students on campus. I know not everybody recognizes themselves as having a disability if you're living with type 1 diabetes, and that's kind of your decision to make and what's comfortable for you. The Government of Canada recognizes type 1 diabetes as a disability, though, which means that you are entitled to accommodations to help make your journey at post-secondary school a lot easier. And those are just sort of, so if you want to research where those rights come from, those are the resources there for you. So it's up to you whether you're going to access accommodations. Not all students living with diabetes do. We always suggest you have them there in case, because you may never need them. You may never go low during an exam. You may never get super sick and your sugar spike and you can't get your essay that you've put off for 3 weeks done in time. And it's just a backup in place for you to make sure that you have the support from your professors and the school, just so that you can prioritize your health, because you don't want to kind of push that down on the level of priorities just so that you can get your, I don't know, your exam done with a woozy head. So this is just a list of some of the accommodations that are available for students with type 1. It varies school by school. Most schools are pretty good about it. Sometimes you have to do a little bit of self-advocacy. So additional time for tests and exams is a really great one to ask for. You could also write your exams in separate rooms if you don't want to worry about your alarms going off or rustling through your bag for a juice box or something like that, and disrupting sort of other students who are there. Asking to make sure that you get food or drink allowed in the test exams. Another really important one is being able to have your phone or whatever you're monitoring your sugar at on your desk during exams, so they know that you're not cheating and they know why you have it there. And if you are living in residence, kind of looking into what kind of accommodations are available for being on campus. So you can often get early pick for what room you're going to have so that you're located close to the residence dawn or near an exit. You can decide if you want a private or shared room, depending on what you and your family decide is best for you. And then one that I didn't know about that I wish I had way back when was priority course selection. So if you know that the mornings are really hard for you to have your sugars kind of in plate or in range, you can ask for later courses during the day and by selecting those courses early. For Maya and Heather, is there anything there that you strongly recommend or that you've used, or did you choose not to use accommodations?
I think permission to leave the class for medical reasons. I use injections and I found it helpful to be able to leave and give an injection and come back. And I think you're also able to get, peer provided lecture notes. I thought that was really helpful because if you do have a low, I know sometimes I zone out when I'm having a low, so it's really helpful to have those notes as a backup.
For me, I found, I'm going to be honest, when I first came to university, I really was not on top of accommodations. I didn't contact my office until this semester. But something I found really helpful was accessing the exam accommodations, because a lot of my exams are 3 hours and sometimes 4 hours. So the possibility of going low during those exams is pretty high. And if you're in like a big exam hall with like 600 to 700 people, which is what they do at McGill, you can't really just go get some food and eat it or like take a break. So I found getting those exam accommodations really helpful, especially for this semester.
And it's not hard to get the accommodations. So the first step is just contacting your school student wellness center, accessibility office. You can find out in the transition guide where that is, who to contact, and you just ask them what they need. So each university or college has different requirements. So some need a letter from your doctor, others have a form that your doctor or someone from your care team needs to fill out. I don't know, it depends on if you've transitioned to adult care, if you're still in pediatric. Most pediatric clinics, because they know you best, will be more than happy to fill out that form for you, even if you've transitioned. But it's something to check in with them to ask about. Obviously, then you need to make an appointment with your doctor to have any required documentation filled out, and send that information to the school. Hopefully they say yes, yes, give you a stamp of approval, and then they send you a letter of accommodations that you then would forward to your profs and your teachers and your TAs. Is there anything missing in there? Any kind of missteps that either of you had in getting your accommodations set up?
Nope, that's pretty much all it took for me.
Yeah. Occasionally, there will be some people in the accessibility office that don't understand type 1. And I know that's something that we kind of experience across the board. If you do need help advocating for it, you can always reach out to DHF. We're happy to take on the fight on behalf of anyone living with type 1. You can ask your clinic, they can make a call for you as well. Just know that you're not necessarily in it alone, but also just refer back to sort of your rights as someone living with a disability. And then that should be sort of the ace in your pocket. Just a few quick things to point out. As soon as you know where you're going, start the process of getting your accommodations in place. It's a really quick process, but it can sometimes take time to go back and forth between the doctor's office and the school and making sure they understand the form. And some of the forms are really confusing. And so it's better to get it started sooner than later. Maya, when you were doing it for this semester, did it take you very long to get everything sorted out?
It really didn't. The only thing is the wait period for getting an appointment was pretty long, as it is with honestly most offices in large universities. It was only like a 15-minute appointment, and then she granted me like a list of accommodations. And then I see a question in the chat about whether or not the school provides the letters of accommodations for your TA. So for me, I got a letter from my doctor, which was just proof of diagnosis. And then I sent that in to the woman at the accessibility office who I was working with. And then it was pretty much an automated system from there. So they reached out to my profs if I needed to take a test in another place or if I needed to have an assignment deadline be later. I never did that, but that's something that they would do for you, in my experience.
Was it the same for you, Heather?
Actually, no. For us, they send us kind of the accommodations, and then we're in charge of sending the letter to each of our profs to notify them. And then if we ever need accommodations, then we just email our profs and say, "Hey, I'm requesting this accommodation based on my letter of accommodations I sent to you at the beginning of term."
So in the transition planner, we do have a sample letter. Your doctor probably won't need it, but just in case it's a new doctor and you just want to help them out, there's a letter template that they can use. There's also a templated email that you can send to your Ts or profs. So if you don't have a loving and caring school like McGill is for type 1 diabetes and accommodations and you need to do that work yourself, there is a standardized email. We recommend sending it out before class even starts. I know if you're in a big lecture hall with 300, 400 people, it sometimes helps to include a picture of yourself. So if you do start beeping and your professor looks up all mad, then hopefully that like the picture triggers that, all right, you're the one who's got diabetes. So just a couple things to keep in mind. Just to kind of reiterate, stress is going to impact your blood sugars. It probably already is because you just got through finals for last semester and you're preparing for finals for the end of grade 12. It can be a little bit more intense at school, especially if you're living on your own or having to juggle a bunch of different things like work and a different schedule and all these different foods. So just it's good to have those accommodations in place just while you figure stuff out, especially. So even before exams, just if you have to miss a class for whatever reason, then at least you can sort of say this is why. Okay, so we're going to move on to health insurance. It's an automatic opt-in for student health insurance. So once you kind of say, yes, I want to come to your school, here is my tuition, they give you student health insurance. You need to opt out of the student health insurance, and each school has a different deadline for that, but it's in your first semester. And I think it's within the first month or so that you have to tell them that you're opting out of it. And then you get that money sort of as a credit to your account or something like that, depending how it works. Most schools, you have to prove that you have a comparable health insurance in place. So parents' health insurance. If you're in Ontario, I don't think they accept OHIP Plus. They would put you on the school insurance plan. And for a lot of folks, it's nice to have both plans. So if your parents' plans cover 70% of your supplies, and then the student plan will cover the extra 30%, it's a nice bump up. When you do have student health insurance, that becomes the primary health insurance for you. So you'd make a claim through the student health insurance, and then anything else you would claim through your parents' health insurance. There is a blackout period. So in August, September, the schools are always negotiating their next health insurance deal, I guess they have with the company. So during that time, you can't make any claims, but you can keep all your receipts and then claim them once that blackout period is over. So in September, just make sure you got some extra money in your bank account so that you can pick up those prescriptions or load up early before you go off to school. And if you're going to university, the plans are managed by student unions. And if you're going to colleges, they're usually managed by the college admin. So just so you know who to talk to if you have any questions or issues with that. Maya, I know you said one of your tips was figuring out insurance. So I'm going to let you take the floor and share some of your learnings from that.
Yeah, insurance, especially moving out of province, insurance was a bit of a struggle for me at first, especially because I moved to Quebec. I don't see anybody in the chat who's going to Quebec from another province, which is probably good for your insurance. But I ended up taking the student insurance that McGill offered, and then I also stayed on my insurance from home. So I used both of those to cover my insulin. It's still not fully covered, especially because the provincial coverage in Quebec is worse than some other provinces because they haven't made a deal yet with the government. But we don't need to talk about that at the moment. Hopefully soon. One thing I have found is larger things that don't go bad. If you can take them to university from your home, I definitely would do that. For example, Dexcoms, I do have a CGM. I'm also on mandatory injections, so I don't have a pump, so I'm not quite sure how that would work. But for my CGMs, when I moved here, I think I took about 3 or 4 months worth of CGMs from Vancouver because they are much less expensive. And then also Lancets, everything that's not insulin, I pretty much took as much as I could. One other thing about transferring prescriptions with insurance, I found that the easiest way to do that, especially because it can be really hard to find a doctor, is to do your university will probably have some form of online health that you can have. So I showed them my previous prescriptions from Vancouver, and then they transferred my insulin prescriptions to Quebec. So that was the easiest way that I found to figure out health insurance, and also not use health insurance where I didn't need to with bringing stuff over.
I think that's a really important conversation to have with your parents about who's going to be ordering supplies, how they're going to get them to you if you're living on campus and you're kind of more than a 20-minute drive away from home, and just figuring out how that's going to work and learn how to, if you're going to be ordering supplies, learn how to order them, learn how long it takes, like get all the information from your parents that you can, and find out what to do if your sensor or your pump or something fails and you need to get it replaced, because that can be a whole bunch of hoop jumping depending on the insurance company that you're with and depending on the pump that you're using. So kind of get that information from your parents ahead of time. Heather, did you have anything to add?
Sure, just to jump onto your point, you know, deciding what pharmacy you're going to go to when you go to university is really important. Having one that's close to you.
Excellent. So I'm just going to go on. So in the planner, we sort of have an overview what you can expect from insurance. These are just kind of the average of what you get from the school insurance plans. Just make sure that you check that out beforehand and also look into what else is covered. So things like seeing a dietitian or physiotherapy, psychotherapy, if you want to do any counseling, massage therapy is one thing I wish I had known about to take advantage of when I was at school. So just make sure you figure that out as soon as you can. The transition guide has a direct link to the insurance plans for all of the schools across Canada, so it's another way that you can use that resource to your advantage. And if you're looking at kind of deciding if you want to stay on your parents' plan or if your parents both have a plan and you want to see which one's better, you can really compare what's going to be the best for you. Just for, I don't know, around diabetes supplies and stuff like that, figure out how to schedule your endo appointments around the breaks that you have so you don't have to worry about it happening in the middle of exams or midterms or like when your big project is due. They're usually pretty flexible about moving your appointment a couple months so that's over the winter holidays or reading week. So just make sure that you're thinking of that before you start school because time will kind of just slip away on you and you'll kind of be realizing that you're 3 months overdue for your endo appointment and you don't want to get into that cycle. Studying in another province, and Maya, you can kind of fill in the gaps here. So if you're in Ontario, you can continue using OHIP as long as you provide documentation to the ministry of the province that you're applying to. And I don't know if it's the same in BC for you, Maya. And then if you're permanently moving, that's when you have to notify your current Ontario or your current Ministry of Health that you're going to be moving. And then there's usually a 3 month buffer period to cover you during that time while you get everything set up in the new province. I'll let you speak to that, Maya, because you probably know a little bit more about some of the challenges that might come up with that.
For my BC health insurance, it actually doesn't work in Quebec, or so I've been told. I'm covered for some things, but not really prescriptions. But again, I'm going to say that that might just be a Quebec thing. I'm not 100% sure on that, but Quebec has a lot of different rules when it comes to interprovince relationships. So it's been a little bit more tricky. I do imagine that you can use your provincial health insurance in other provinces, and I know that you do get a much cheaper insurance rate because you have provincial health insurance with McGill. So I know some universities will definitely take it into account, but I've primarily relied on my student health insurance and then also my parents' health insurance so far in
Yeah.
university.
So it's something to really look into because if you do have to go to the hospital, if you go into DKA or if you have a low, knock on wood, it's just nice to know if it's going to be covered or not. So check and see if Quebec's the lone wolf in making that a little more challenging, and just make sure that you figure that out before you go. That's a great thing to get your parents to research for you if you want to kind of share the load a little bit. We love looking into that kind of stuff. So just kind of put that out there as a conversation you can have with them. Okay, eating on campus. I know it can give a lot of people some major anxiety about figuring out what they're going to do for their diabetes when they're eating on campus. Really do your research ahead of time when you're deciding what school you want to go to. Often universities will have different colleges and colleges will have different kind of areas that you're associated with. So look into what their meal plan options are there and what's going to work best for you and whatever your current diabetes regimen is. A lot of universities and colleges also put out like a monthly or a weekly menu so you can check and see what's on the menu and you kind of get familiar with what food to expect. And most universities and colleges have your typical Subway and Tim Hortons and the stuff that you're used to eating wherever you're living now. You may not have a locker on campus, so this kind of goes back to what Maya was saying, but just make sure that you're packing extra snacks and extra loads that are going to get you through the day. You can apply to get a locker. They're kind of at a premium, so if you do get one, you might become the most popular person on campus because everyone wants to stash stuff in your locker. But just something to keep in mind because it's very different from when you are in high school. The other thing is that you're going to be doing a lot of walking across campus, and it's getting a lot more steps than you do kind of running up to the third floor for your biology class. So just take that into consideration. Make sure you got low snacks until you kind of figure out what your sugars are going to be at school. And kind of adjust your insulin and talk with your clinic before you go about how to adjust your insulin for that extra exercise. It's always great to ask for a brush up on carb counting because we all get very familiar with the food that we're eating. And I know exactly how much is in my mom's lasagna, but the lasagna at university is going to be very, very different. So brush up on your carb counting, especially for doing it with foods that you're not familiar with. Your team will be so very excited to teach it to you. I guarantee they love to kind of tell you that kind of stuff. And do it with a team that you're familiar with. If you can do it with your pediatric team before you transfer, because they know you, they have a better sense of you, and they can kind of give you that information. And just keep a journal, especially for the first couple of months, as you kind of get to know how different foods are going to impact you. I'm going to stop there because I'm talking too much and see, Maya and Heather, how your experience kind of shifting to campus food was, and if you have any tips to share with folks.
Yeah, mine's a little different. I'm a commuter student, so a lot of the food that I think of requires packing extra low snacks in the car and things like that, and in my backpack. Again, just probably a good idea is bringing small items. So I know I bring a lot of like made good granola bars. I find those are pretty easy to work into a purse or something that I'm bringing with my laptop. And sometimes juice box, I found that sometimes they can spill in my bag. So maybe for walking across campus, finding something like Skittles or Rockets or Dex tabs or something like that. Sometimes that can be better if you're doing long walks where you don't really want to risk that with your laptop in your bag.
Just building off of what Heather said with that, my favorite hack for like a low snack is I like to take a water bottle and I just fill it up with sugar and water. It's not the best tasting thing I've ever had in my life, but it lasts like the entire day and it's also really cost effective because it can get expensive buying a bunch of different things, especially if you go low a lot. I'm someone where that happens to me quite often. So the water bottle, also you can just pull it out in class and you're just drinking water like it's normal. I'm also not on the meal plan. I'm not a commuter student, but I do have celiac disease, so I can't be on the meal plan because there's a lot of cross-contamination. One thing I do know from my friends who are on the meal plan is that there's specific times that you can go and that you can't go, and you're not always allowed to take food out of the cafeteria. So that's something to keep in mind for sure, especially if you're low and you want to get into the cafeteria, but you only have maybe 3 or 4 swipes a day. It really depends on the university for that one, though. So I would definitely research that before you go.
Yeah. Also, make sure you get a fridge for your room, and that's an accommodation. If the university is pushing back on it, you can ask for that to be added to your accommodations list. A mini fridge that's just for you, and that's for storing your insulin. Please keep it on the bottom shelf because otherwise it could freeze because mini fridges are not the most reliable. But it also is kind of a place that you can keep any low snacks that you prefer if you prefer your juice cold. Or it's just a nice way to kind of hide it away from folks who might be getting munchies in the middle of the night. And just find out what you can keep in your room if you are going to be on campus and find somewhere to keep your low stacks so that and let people know they're your low snacks. Like explain to them why they're there and that they can't, it's not just like an open door policy for your food. That's sort of something we can talk about in a little bit, how to navigate those conversations. The other thing too is it's really helpful to kind of make at least one meal a day a social event so that you're not just living on sort of granola bars and grabbing I don't know, a bag of chips from the concession area or whatever they're called. That makes me feel really old when I say it like that. But sort of work in at least one meal, whether you're bringing it from commuting or getting together with some of the friends that you've made or that you're bringing with you to university and just have a sit down meal, make it a social event so it doesn't feel like it's a pain in the butt that you have to eat. And it's just a nice way to get to know people as well and make sure that you're getting some healthy food in there because it's good for your diabetes and your brain and it makes your mom happy and all that kind of stuff in there. The other sort of, I guess, the final point that I wanted to make, just make sure there's nothing on here, just be kind to yourself because it's a learning process and your sugars are probably going to fluctuate a lot more than you're used to at home because your routine is changing, your food is changing, your stress level, like all those different 42 factors that affect your diabetes are going to be coming into play. So be kind with yourself. And for the parents in the room, be kind to your kids because it is a learning process for everybody and you will find your groove again and you will find your flow and what keeps you in range and what keeps you feeling good. But just don't beat yourself up if the first week you're riding 12 or 14 or 16 through the night or something like that, because you do need to figure it out. We do have a recipe blog online, so if you're looking for some quick and easy student approved foods, we have the Smart Bites recipe blog. And this is just where I'm going to plug the mentorship program, where you can connect with someone who's also living with type 1 and kind of find out some of their food hacks that work for them. And it's always just nice to have someone to vent to when diabetes is kicking your butt or to gloat to when you're kicking its butt. So, and that's available to anybody. We have an online forum, you can send me an email and we can set you up with a peer mentor. The next thing is sort of talking about your diabetes on campus. And I know that there's kind of this wide spectrum of how much people share about their type 1. I know people who tell everyone they meet in their first conversation, by the way, I have type 1 diabetes. I know other people who keep it very close to their chests and don't even talk with their partners about their diabetes. So you do have to find what works for you. Please make sure that somebody knows that you have diabetes just in case there is an emergency. Professors should know, TAs should know for the academic side of things. If you are in resident, your advisor should know just in case there's an emergency and they know what to do. New friends or classmates, find someone that you can trust that can have your back when you're out there. And it's up to you how much you feel comfortable sharing with them. Like you don't have to tell them what your full daily regimen is to manage your diabetes, but just knowing especially what to do in an emergency is really, really important. Maya and Heather, I'll let you share a little bit about what approach you take to telling folks about your type 1.
Yeah, I know for me, I usually, on the first day of classes, I kind of go up to the prof after and I usually just say, hey, I'm Heather, and just to let you know I have type 1 diabetes. Um, in university, they usually don't really care as much about if people are, glancing at their phones, but I still like to mention it just because I have Dexcom, so all my sugars are on my phone. So if it's a small classroom like there are so many at Trent, I just say, if I'm looking at my phone, I'm just checking my sugars, or if I step out, it's because I'm giving insulin or something, just so that they're kind of aware of, what's happening. So, because sometimes profs can be confused and ask you if you're okay after if you don't tell them ahead of time. So I just like to get it out of the way. And I don't usually tell everybody I meet, but I usually do like to tell at least one person in the class that I'm with. Usually it'll probably be whoever you make friends with in that class, just so you can have kind of someone who's aware of anything that's going on in case something happens in case of an emergency.
I'm definitely on the other side of the spectrum with that, which is where I don't tell probably as many people as I should. Especially because my university is so large. Most of my classes have 500 around people in them, so I don't have a lot of contact with my profs anyways. Sometimes I'll tell my TAs if I feel like it's important. And the people that I care about the most are my roommates, or they're the people I'm the closest friends with. So telling them was definitely really important. I think I never formally told any of them. I think I probably just made an offhanded joke about it or complained about it to some capacity. That's just how I prefer to do it because it feels more comfortable than saying that I have diabetes. But everyone's different in that regard. So whatever works for you, to be honest.
Yeah. It's also good to have a conversation with your parents, especially if you have a Dexcom where people can follow you. And if your parents are following you, sort of one person they can call in case they can't get in touch with you if you're riding low and you're not getting back to them, just to give them peace of mind. I know it can be very annoying, but it's even more annoying to have 25 texts coming in. So if you have one or two and just kind of let them know or have a backup for them to call, it can go a long way in just kind of easing their stress and sort of as a mom, the less stress we have, the happier you will be, I promise. It's also someone else can carry Dex or carry juice boxes for you. So that's why I like telling at least one person to kind of share my heavy load of backpacks. I know one thing that I've heard from a lot of folks is that in high school they kept it very private, but when they were away at university, their teachers were different. They didn't have their parents as close by. They started telling people, and the reception was a lot different than it was in high school. There's not anyone who are making snide remarks. There may be one or two, but for the most part, people have matured over the summer before they go to university, and most of them might have a few questions about it. And again, you can decide how much of that you want to answer, but for the most part, people aren't going to make a big deal about it. And that leads into going out with type 1 diabetes. And this is just kind of carrying over from the last point. It's so important to have someone you're going out with know that you have type 1, just in case something does happen while you're out, that you have a backup in place. And this is in the planner, so you can kind of read through it in more detail. The one thing I really want to highlight on here is that glucagon or Baqsimi will not work if you've been drinking. So when you're drinking, your body's sort of focused on processing all the alcohol, and it will not process the glucagon when you give yourself the injection or the nasal spray. So just make sure that you're staying on top of your sugars. I always like to ride a little bit higher. If you do see yourself going low, make sure that you're treating it early and set your alarms loud so that you can hear it over the music or the conversation or whatever it is that's going on around you. I'm going to throw it to Maya and Heather because they're probably a little bit more well versed in this than I am since I'm a bit on the older side of things. Anything that you just want to kind of point out about going out with type 1 that you wanted to highlight?
I will say, one of the key things for me that I didn't know before I came to university is that there's delayed onset hypoglycemia, which is where your blood sugar goes low multiple like hours after you start drinking. So that's something that I really do try to keep in mind, if I am partaking, and will, again, as Heather said, tend to ride higher with that one. Also, as much as I don't like telling people about my diabetes, that is the one circumstance where at least two people that I'm going out with have to know. Just because if I lose one of them or it gets busy and I'm maybe, yeah, it's just that's one of the situations where I find it really, really important to tell people. Also, I do tend to mention that delayed onset hypoglycemia is something that I have and struggle with just because it's much better if someone will remind me to eat later in the night if I forget, or they can help me get food if they know that that's something to keep in mind or worry about.
Especially when so many of the symptoms of having a hypo, you kind of look like you're a little bit tipsy. And
Yeah.
it's really, yeah, yeah. Even with DKA, though, that can often look like you're hungover if you're puking and throwing up. So just making sure that whoever you're staying with that night knows to look for the symptoms on both sides of that. Really good idea to set an alarm in the morning. I know it's hard to get up depending on how late you were out, but just to make sure that you can check your sugars. And if you have a CGM that your parents can follow you on, and when you go to university, you've decided that they're not going to be following you 24/7, it's a good idea to maybe just let them know when you are going out and say, hey, I'm just going to turn on the follow for tonight, just as a backup, just in case. This is when you can call, and kind of set those boundaries in place just so that you have that extra backup of someone who really understands diabetes and how it impacts you. I cut you off a bit there, Heather, so I'm going to let you jump back in if you have anything you wanted to add.
No, you're good. I was just gonna say it's a good idea to wear your medic alert jewelry as well in case anything happens. And yeah, that definitely is one of the nights where you would want to tell people so they know. I know for me, I'm kind of the opposite where sometimes I'll have like just extended high blood sugars. So hydrating a lot beforehand, before you go out, that can always help a lot as well with not having as many bad symptoms the morning after. So yeah.
And it's a good idea just to make an appointment with your healthcare team, and your parents can be there or they don't have to be. just to ask about the impacts of drinking and recreational drugs might have on your diabetes and sort of different alcohols and how they're going to affect it. They're kind of one of the best resources that you can go to. And I know it's not always the most comfortable conversation to have because they can often feel like sort of additional parents, but just to remind yourself that they're professionals and they're there to provide you that information. And there's also a lot of stuff you can find online. Just make sure it's coming from a reputable source like Diabetes Canada or the American Diabetes Association or stuff like that. There's a lot of fun YouTube videos, which are great to watch. Just make sure you're verifying it, please. Please, please, please. Okay, these are just a few resources that we have in the planner that are good to sort of hand out to maybe roommates or Dons or RAs. The one is just important contacts, just kind of having it in your Don's hand in case they do need to call somebody. And for folks who aren't familiar with diabetes, just giving them an idea of what your range can be, because there'll be times where I'm out with friends and my blood sugar is reading 12 and they're like, oh my God, we got to get you to the hospital. And like, you're like, no, I'm good. I just need to give myself insulin. So this kind of helps if you want to use it, to just sort of mitigate how panicked people need to get, and then it gives them a plan of when they need to worry. So if you're riding at 24 and you're throwing up, then you would have on here that your action plan, please call the ambulance because I need to go to the hospital or drive me there yourself. And the same with the lows. And just it really helps to let them know how to help you. And that's part of the conversation if you are disclosing to have how to help you if you have a low. So if it's just giving me 10 minutes because I'm going to be really annoyed if you talk to me while I'm waiting for my low to come up, or keep talking to me while I'm low because otherwise I go panic mode and I just need someone to ground me. So whatever it is that works for you, just to have those conversations with them. And then sort of I think this is the last one, just what campus supports are available for you. So a lot, mostly in Ontario, but they're starting to pop up in other provinces in Canada. There are campus clubs that are diabetes related, which is a great place to kind of reach out and connect with people. You do need to do a little bit of recon because some of them are mostly med students who are focused on type 2, and then there's others where they're primarily type 1s. So just get a sense of what the club is and how to get involved. It's also great to just meet other people with similar interests. You don't need to join the diabetes clubs. There's all sorts of different clubs that you can get involved in, and it's a great place to meet people, get involved. It looks really good on applications if you're applying for grad school or when you're graduating and applying for work. Look into counseling services. University can get overwhelming, and sometimes an appointment with an on-campus counselor can just help you kind of bring down the anxiety or the stress or figure out if you need something a little bit more long term. The transition guide has information about all the counseling services at the campuses across Canada. And then our Hope Connects peer mentorship program. I hope that you have fallen in love with Maya and Heather, and all of our mentors are as phenomenal. And they're just folks that you can talk to. It's a pretty easy process. You meet with me, let me know what you're looking for in a mentor. I get you to fill out a form that tells me a little bit about who you are and what you like to do so that we're not just matching you because you're both diabetic and now you must be best friends. So we try and kind of make a match based on shared interests. And then I'll send you a couple of potential mentors that I feel like might be fun, or not might be fun. It's fun for me to do the matchmaking. It might be a good fit for you. We set up an introduction and then you take it from there. There's no pressure to be checking in with them every week. It's just kind of based on what you're needing. And some folks just need a couple check-ins at the beginning of the school year to get their questions answered. And others, we have mentors who have been to each other's weddings and baby showers and are godparents to their kids and stuff like that. So it really is about what works best for you. I'm going to throw this to Maya and Heather and just kind of share your experiences with accessing support on campus if you've needed it.
Yeah, I definitely suggest connecting with your student wellness coordinator or whatever it may be called at the school. Again, most people do that at the beginning of the semester. This is good to get out of the way, but it's just good to have someone there in case you need someone. I know for Trent, they usually pair you with someone from student wellness, and you can check back and have appointments with them throughout the year if needed. So if that makes you feel more comfortable, just having someone kind of checking up on you, that can be helpful to have. I would definitely recommend getting involved in the peer mentorship program. I know for me, it was really helpful to have someone with personal experience who I could text, and I got really lucky. I got a girl that went to Brock University, and she was also in a teaching education program, and we shared a teachable subject. So we had so much in common, and we were able to talk about a lot more than just, type 1 diabetes in school, although that was really great to have someone who kind of understood different, first year struggles that you may experience with navigating university or college lifestyles.
I would definitely say the same as Heather. I think it's really important first year, especially because a lot of the people that you meet aren't going to understand the struggle of diabetes that you have. Or if it's not a struggle, that's also great. It's really different for everybody. But yeah, I would recommend the Peer Hopes mentorship program. And I'm not biased at all, I will say.
If the one-to-one mentorship feels a bit intense for you, totally get that. We also have a Discord group that kind of ebbs and flow with how active it is, but if you have a question and you post it on there, someone will get back to you. And it's just kind of fun to kind of lurk and see what other people are asking about and talking about. Also new this year through the mentorship program, you don't need to be a mentee to be part of it. We're going to kind of have lead mentors at each campus that'll be coordinating sort of group get-togethers at the beginning of the year, so you can ask any questions you have about navigating campus, and then sort of once or twice throughout the year, they'll have just kind of like everybody come and let's get together and connect and laugh when we go high or joke about going low, and also just kind of complain about professors or whatever it is. So that's another kind of, if you're more interested in sort of that so that group aspect, and there's not a club on campus for diabetes that gives you that, then that's something new that we have. If you are interested in that, send me an email and I'll put you sort of on the list and what school you're going to be going to once you've decided, and then I'll connect you with whoever that sort of senior mentor person is and let them know that you may not want a one-on-one match, but you do want to be part of the group connections. And again, there's no obligation. If you decide you're not feeling like it at 7 o'clock on Friday night, totally fine, but it's there as a resource for you if you want it. The biggest thing from here is just make sure that you're talking with your family and friends about what kind of support you want and what's going to be beneficial for you. Have a conversation, especially if you're going away to school, about how far into the phone call they can ask you about your type 1. Just having those conversations with your parents so that you're managing expectations and setting up boundaries that work for both of you. Because it is a big change for everybody and can be very, very stressful for everybody involved. And just make sure that you do some safety planning. So, what to do if you do go low, who's going to be your backup, who your parents can call if they start panicking, and make sure that those people know that your parents have their number as well. And I know the sort of application for the scholarship is closed because you have type 1 diabetes, because the government of Canada recognizes it as a disability. You do qualify for the Canada Student Grant for students with disabilities. You have to be applying for a provincial financial aid program to qualify, and it's part of that application. There are 3 provinces, and I'm pretty sure Quebec is one of them, that has a separate program for this. I think Quebec and Newfoundland, and there's one more that I'm not remembering off the top of my head. But if you go to the Canada Student Grant for Students with Disabilities page, it'll link you to the programs that they have. And this is something that you're absolutely eligible for, and you can apply for it if you're kind of in that range that would qualify you for a provincial aid program. And just a refresher of some of the programs that we have. So the Hope Connects Peer Support Program. We also have our Pep Talks Caregiver Program. So that's once a month we have a virtual webinar where we just talk with parents about getting ready for that transition. We also have a slew of free resources available on our website. If you just go to the Student Transition Hub, I think it's called, you can access the planner there, the guide there. We have a bunch of webinars that talk about navigating post-secondary school with type 1 diabetes. The Greater Than T1D community blog, I highly recommend you go read that. And if you want to write a blog entry, just reach out to me. We're always kind of open to new entries from folks. These are blogs all written by students living with type 1 about their experiences at school or projects that they've initiated. We have one from a singer who lives with type 1 and works as a professional singer. So there's just a lot of really cool stories and a lot of really good resources on there that you can read. Heather's written a couple. I'm going to start harassing Maya to maybe write one in the future. And like I said, if you're interested in writing one, just reach out because we're always excited and looking for stories. So we'll open the floor to any questions that people might have before we wrap up for the evening.
I saw one from earlier in the chat that said, what happens if they deny your accommodations? And for that, I would definitely reach out to your pediatric team or whatever team you're with there, as well as like feel free to reach out to us if you need extra support there. But since, as Heather said earlier, diabetes is a registered disability with the government, you are entitled to have accommodations, so that shouldn't be something that is denied. You are entitled to an amount of accommodations. It might just be different what each school offers up front, but you can always request different ones later.
So there's a question about the scholarship winners being announced. So our committee is right now scoring the applications, and they'll be meeting in mid-April because there's a lot that they have to get through this year. So we usually we'll send out an email to everybody end of April, beginning of May, to let you know either way. The Hope Connects program, you can go online and apply there. If you just go into the program tab, it's there, or you're welcome to send me an email. I'll probably get you to fill out the same form. So whatever works for you, you can do both. You can fill out the form and then say, hey, I filled out the form, and then I'll follow up with you and we'll set up a meeting to sort of just get to know what you're looking for from the program. I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Heather and Maya for sharing their time with us and sharing their experiences. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me by email. I usually get back to people pretty quickly. If I don't mind a nudge. If I haven't heard from you for a couple of days, I won't be offended. And Heather also works with the Hope Connects team, so you can also email hopeconnects@diabeteshopefoundation.com, and she or someone else from her team can get back to you. I want to wish everybody all the very best in getting your letters of acceptance and figuring out what school you're going to, and I hope that September goes as smooth as possible for you. Enjoy your summer before you go, and enjoy all the adventures that are coming your way, because there's going to be a lot of great stuff that happens. And just embrace it, and yeah, just don't let anything stop you from that. I don't know if either of you had any last minute words of wisdom you wanted to share.
Well, thanks for attending tonight, everyone. Just want to say you're definitely taking a right step in the right direction for, preparing for university college life ahead of time. So we appreciate you being here.
Yes, I agree. Good luck with university.
All right. Thank you so much. Like I said, I'm happy to hang around for a few minutes. It's been really nice having you here. And I will send out the slide deck to everybody who's interested in, as well as the link to the resources that we talked about tonight.
Excuse me. I do have a question. When we get connected with like our roommates, and I'm pretty sure there's like a whole like application kind of like you fill out the forms and all that. I'm wondering if we are able to get with another type 1 diabetic, or if we get a separate room, or is there like that big accommodation, just like being alone in a room, or how would that work?
So the only problem with trying to get someone else who's a type 1 diabetic is you can't have access to other people's medical records or medical history. So it's something that you can request, but I don't think it's something that like they can guarantee. I got put in shared a specific type of housing because I couldn't be on the meal plan. And I know that you can, but I do know that you can request like single rooms or shared rooms. For example, you could say, I need a single room because I'm worried about my roommate having people over and then like taking my supplies or doing something to the fridge and then doing this. Or you could say, I need a double room because I'm worried that my blood sugar is going to go low and then nobody's going to be there. You can definitely work your accommodations to figure out something that works for you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
No worries.
Hello, I also have a question. It's a little bit different, but for the Diabetes Hope Scholarship, do you know when the winners are announced?
Yeah, so we'll be sending emails out to everybody who applied. So whether you receive it or not, you'll be getting an email late April, early May, and then we announce it publicly middle of May usually.
Awesome. And then also just like for the scholarship, how does like the money work? Does it go like straight into your bank account, or do you have to like have proof of like you using it for like tuition, or just like how does it work?
Yeah, for sure. So it's a little bit old school. We don't have direct deposit set up yet for scholarship recipients. So you get a check in the mail. You get it in two disbursements. So you get half of it in August, so before you go away to school, and then you get the second half. Oh, hopefully it arrives over your December break, so you have it for your next semester. And like I said, it's a check. It goes to you, so you decide if you want to put it towards tuition. We're not going to be following up and asking for receipts. We trust that you know how you need to use that money to best support yourself. You do get a T4 slip, so that's why we're going to, if you do receive the scholarship, we'll ask for your SIN number so that we can send out a T4 slip for you to apply to your taxes. And in order for us to send the check out, you do need to submit proof of enrollment for each semester. So your timetable or a receipt from your school to sort of share that you've enrolled and we know that you're going to the school that you said you're going to go to. You are able to defer a year. So if you've applied and you receive a scholarship and you say, I'm going to take a year to work, you can defer it up to 1 year. You just need to send me an email so that we've got that on your file.
Awesome, thank you. That answers all my questions. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
perfect. Good.
Great,
Even
thank
if you don't get the scholarship, I hope that you do kind of stay connected with DHF because I know that's a wonderful thing to have, but we have a phenomenal community that can kind of support you if and when you need it. And if you don't want to mentor in the first year, but you want to come back and mentor when you're in your third or fourth year, we're always looking for new folks to come in and help out in different ways at the organization.
Yeah, of course. Thank you again.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for coming tonight.
Yeah, of course. Have a good night.
You too.